Welcome to AER Int channel, and welcome back to sheer metal cores. We are really getting through this feature as well now, and the next one we're going to look at is the Lofted Bend. This can be used to create a transition between two different profiles. So maybe something like going from a square bend to a more rounded bend. And there's many times this might be useful. For example, it might be something like connecting a round pipe, like an exhaust pipe maybe, with a square bracket or something like that. There are two main types of lofted bends in SolidWorks, bent and formed. Both of them start from the same basics. In this video, I'll quickly take a look at both of them. And then in the next video, we'll take a look at the bend version in a bit more detail because it's a little bit more complex. Lofted bends are one of the few sheared metal features that doesn't need a base flange. All we need is two open profile sketches, so let's start an entirely new part. We need to draw two open profiles. So firstly, let's start a sketch on the front plane and use a center rectangle and draw a rectangle something like this. So it's 150mm wide. Going to make it 80 high. The profiles for these lofts can't have sharp corners, so I'm going to round off these corners by adding a 10mm sketch fillet to the corners. And another important limitation is that the profile must be open. It can't be a fully closed profile like this. To fix this, I'm just gonna trim away a small section of the profile. So I'm gonna make a horizontal center line going out to the middle here. And then I'm gonna offset that line just by a small amount, let's say 1mm. I'm gonna make that offset line into a construction line. And then I'm just gonna grab the trim tool, get power trim. I'm just gonna cut away this little area here. So now we haven't got a fully closed profile here. We've got a small gap here on the left. There's our first profile. So now we need to draw a second one. Firstly, let's add a new plane for this profile. To do this, let's just select the front plane. Then hover over the edge of the plane in the graphics area until we get this little icon with 4 blue arrows. Then hold down Ctrl and just left click and drag away from the front plane. And that should add a new plane. So just to show us again, select the initial plane, the front plane. Then hover over the edge of it until we get this icon. And hold down Ctrl and left click and drag away. And we'll set that at a distance of 150mm. Then we can start a sketch on this new plane. And I'm just gonna go normal too. We're gonna draw a similar profile, but just much more rounded. So I'm gonna use the slot tool for this. I'm going to use a center point straight slot. So this is also gonna start at the origin. Gonna drag it out so roughly the same size. And add some smart dimensions. Let's make it R40 on the sides. And then 100 on the straight section. So remember our two limitations for the loft profiles. We can't have sharp corners, and we can't have a closed profile. So we don't have any sharp corners in this, but we do have a closed profile. So let's do a similar thing to that first sketch. I'm going to add a horizontal center line. And then I'm gonna offset that center line 1mm upwards. And this time we can click Offset Geometry under the Construction Geometry options. This just means that the offset line will automatically be a construction line. Then when that's added, we can get the trim tool again. Just gonna trim a small gap there. And we might get an error that says we're gonna destroy the slot entity. That's okay. If our slot turns blue like this, we can redefine it just by going to Display Delete Relations here on the Sketch tab, clicking on the drop down, and just pressing Fully Define Sketch and pressing OK. Now it'll automatically define the entire sketch. So now we have two separate sketches. They're both open profiles, they don't have any sharp corners, and they're on different planes. And we can use this to create the loft. To do this, select Lofted Bend, it's on the Sheet Metal tab, and it's one of the few options that will be available, because we don't have a base flange already. The first thing we need to do is select the loft profiles. This can be done here on the left, and they should be selected in a similar way to how we select profiles in a normal loft in solid modeling. So by this I mean, we should try and select corresponding points on each profile. So we see, if I select this top right corner on this profile, I should select a similar position on this second profile. And then we get a nice preview like this. if I clear this selection and then select the top right one on the first profile, and then select the opposite one on the next profile, we don't get any preview, because the loft is essentially twisted, so it won't work properly. So always try and select roughly the same place on each profile. So we mentioned at the start, there's two main options here, bent and formed. They can be selected at the top on the left here. And as I switch between them, hopefully you see there's a slight difference in the preview there. The formed option looks much more smooth and flowing, looks much more like a traditional loft feature, and there's also far fewer options here on the left. Let's look at the formed one first, because it's a little bit simpler. So we've selected the profiles, we've got the correct preview, and we can set the thickness here if we need to. This is the sheet thickness. Then we can press OK to make this feature. So it's come out as a nice smooth piece, everything looks correct. We can flatten the part, and it does flatten correctly. If you look from the top, we can see it's a slightly strange shape. It's not quite square there, but also it doesn't have any bend lines, so we could probably bend this part, but it would be quite hard to make without specialized tooling. Let's fold it up again, and try and change it to a bend version so we can see the difference. The problem is, if we now edit this feature, and try to change the type of lofted bend, we no longer have that option. What we need to do is delete that lofted bend, and then re-add it again using the same sketches. So let's select lofted bend again. We select the profiles. This time let's try the bend method. And we see this time, instead of a smooth bend, we've got lots of little areas, and we've got loads more options on the left. The preview looks sort of okay, so let's press OK to make this feature. So now we can see the feature is sort of an approximation of the previous one that we made, but it's got all these little bend lines on it. So this bend option actually might be easier to make, because we can actually see where all the bends are gonna be, even though it doesn't give us a shape that's quite as smooth as the previous option. So formed looks great, but it can be much harder to make. The bend option can be easier to make, and we'll look at this more in the next video. But for now, we'll just recap the process of getting here to the bend. To create our lofted bend, we need two profiles. We need to have no sharp corners, and they need to be open profiles. Select the lofted bend feature, and then select the profiles. Try to select the same point on each profile roughly. Then we can choose either the bend or the formed method. The formed option will give us a smooth transition or bend between the two profiles, whereas the bend option gives us a series of straight lines that approximate the bend, but it's probably a bit simpler to manufacture. In the next video, we'll take a bit of a closer look at all of those sub-options under the bend option. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like. I hope it can be a little helpful and useful.